I'm Jim from Come Play With Us, and in this video I am going to be reviewing Tidal Blades 2, Rise of the Unfolders. This is the third game in this universe, the Tidal Blades universe, maybe fourth. I think they did a role-playing game too. But the first board game was like a worker placement, dice placement game, and now they've come out with an adventure game. So if you've played the original Tidal Blades, this one is quite, it says Tidal Blades 2, don't get that confused. It's not really it's kind of Tidal Blades 2 in the sense that it's more thematic than mechanical Tidal Blades 2. This is an actual dungeon crawl type game set in the Tidal Blades universe. As usual, I will not be doing a full overview in this video. I've done a playthrough on my channel, and I'll link that down in the show notes below. Okay, so let's start by talking about components for this game. The components, this is a Druid Cities game, and I've got a few of their games, Tidal Blades, the other Tidal Blades, of course, and one of my favorite games, Wonderland's War. Two completely different games. Anyways, I really love the art in all their games, and that carries through in this one. The art is just gorgeous on this game, and the components are quite well done. This is the retail version of the game, so I don't have any of the minis, but the standees are really well done. I like how they do their standees. The art is gorgeous. I like that they put a background on it. It's not just like a white flat background. They've got a bit of a kind of like a wash in the background. It makes the art really stand out on those. So I like how they do their standees. I mean, they're not acrylic. I wish more companies would just move to the acrylic standees. So I mean, I guess that might be my one complaint, that it is a more expensive game. Maybe acrylic standees would have been nice, but I mean, there are quite a few standees in this, so that might have driven the cost up. I like pretty much all the components in this game. I like how they've done the enemy system. You got a dual layer board here to track the enemy health. And so this is a little bit of an evolution on the kind of like the Gloomhaven system for tracking enemies, where you have two of these dual layer boards, and then you just slot in the enemy card here, and the enemies are color coded. So if you look at the enemies, the bottom is color coded and has a number, and then that matches the color on these pegs here, and then that's how you track the health of the different units. I think this is a nice simple system. It works really well. Really easy to track the enemy health. It cuts down a lot on the upkeep. So I like how they did that. Initiative is the initiative track is just, it's just a track with, kind of round thing. This thing's not dual layered. I don't think it really needs to be, but it's kind of weird because this is dual layered, but this isn't dual layered. And also the player boards are nice dual layer boards. So it is kind of odd that they didn't make the initiative tracker dual layered. It's a minor thing, but it's kind of not consistent with the rest of the boards. I do like the player boards here. When the player boards kind of slot together, you've got this, what they call the Nexus grid for the cards, and then you've got the trackers for the health and the stats, and places to put the shields here and your upgrades, and then a slot for again, this is all dual layer, but where you put this card just kind of sits on top here. And of course the Nexus board is not dual layer either. So a little inconsistencies with the dual layeredness. But overall, I think the components are really nice. You're getting a good quality components for the price you are paying. You get a bunch of these sheets to track the player. So I think I think there's 4 per character. So supports about 4 runs through the campaign before you'd have to photocopy or print out some new sheets. So that's pretty good. The player aids in this game are great, except you only get 1 set. So that always bothers me, that I'd like to have a set for at least 2, so that for different sides of the table. Better if we had a set for each person, but not a super big deal. They are very good player aids, and they list everything you need to know, so you don't have to reference the rulebook too much. So I do like these. I just wish they would have included a couple more. I mean, of course, you can photocopy those and then print out some more for yourself, but it would have been nice to have a couple more included in the box. And then there's just a whole bunch of books. The books are really nicely, the art is really nice on the scenarios tiles. So this game has the scenario maps in the books. I think this is a must until somebody comes up with a better system. I think this is so far the best way to do this for this type of game where you've got set scenarios and you don't need to do a customized scenario, you don't want to provide a customized scenario. To have the scenario books like this, it just cuts down so much on upkeep and setup and all that kind of thing. I think this is a must-have. It's here. They've done it right here, so yeah, I love that they did that, and it's based on the books. I do think for this type of game, it's much better to have books than separate tiles that you have to set up and hunt and down and you know, put all the different stuff on them. It's just, you know, this scenario, these maps, boom, out you go, ready to play. So I really like that. Another minor nitpick on the components is I've been starting to kind of nitpick on this in different games because I'm a sleever, is that the cards are not really a standard size. These are not the standard size square cards that other games have, so you know, I haven't been able to find you know, a standard card sleeve for these. You have to buy. They do make their own, I believe, that you can go get, which are more expensive, of course. So you know, minor nitpick about, you know, not using the standard card size. I would prefer if you know, the board game you know, producers would just stick to standard card sizes, so we don't have to hunt down 20 different types of sleeves to get your game sleeved. It also includes some nice bags for, you know, that there's bags for the resource, so the loot drops and the items have a bag. I don't think the items really needed a bag, but you know, it's a nice little touch to include these little bags. The dice in the game are great. There's various, you know, many different types of dice. They are printed on, so they're not engraved in. I don't mind that. They do look really nice, and you know, they're clear and with color, and you know, they fit the theme and everything like that. I like the way they roll and everything. So the dice are really nice. Yeah. All in all, I think the components in this game are very, very good and you know, top quality for what you're paying here. Okay, so that's enough about the components. The next thing I will talk about the mechanics. So the standout mechanic in this one that sets this one apart from, you know, all the other dungeon crawls, and we've got quite a few now in the market. So you kind of, if you're producing a dungeon crawl, you're going to have to separate yourself somehow. And they're mechanically, how they've done that is with this grid system, and I really do like this grid system. So how this grid system works is at the beginning of the round, you're going to pick a card from your hand. So you'll have 4 cards in your hand, and then you'll pick one of those and set it, you know, in your slot here. There's an initiative slot, so set it face down if you're playing with multiple players. If you're playing solo, you can just put it face up. And then everybody reveals their initiative at once, and then there'll be a symbol. This one doesn't have it, and doesn't do anything but to say this card here has a symbol here that will move you up or down on the initiative track. And then when it's your turn, you'll slot this card in your grid, and you can execute the row or the column, and then every kind of icon here will execute. I really like this system. This is a good system. It does make this unique because, you know, it gives you this kind of little puzzle on how best to use your cards to chain the actions together to get to do what you want on the map, and you know, to do your attack, your move, whatever you're doing. So that really sets this game apart. Otherwise, it's you know, fairly standard, you know, dungeon crawl fare. I do like their AI system and the enemy system. Like I said, it's very Gloomhaven like. It's very, you know, there's a kind of a general priority list of how all the enemies work, and then they have their own deck of cards. They don't have a grid system or anything like that, so you're just going to flip a card and it'll have some symbols on it that you follow, and then they might have a special thing that they do. So to me, this is you know, very Gloomhaven like, but you know, it works. You know, why mess with with something that works very well? It works very well, and like I said, I like how they track the health and stuff. It makes it really easy for that. And in general, you're going to only have 2 enemy types I mean, they only support 2 different enemy types in each scenario, so you only have 2. So that's kind of a weird thing. I mean, I guess that's good. Then it makes it simple and not too complex, so you have to manage like 3 or 4 different types of enemies in a scenario. So I don't mind that too much, but there is only a max because you only have the 2 trackers, and those trackers are also used for bosses and everything. So the other thing is, mechanically, when you get wounded, you're going to draw these like kind of wound cards, and they'll go on their board and you can't clear them. The other thing I forgot to mention is once you fill a row or a column, it will clear, reset kind of. But these wound cards here will clog up as you get wounded. They'll clog up the grid. So a lot of puzzliness. This is a very puzzly kind of system. So if you like puzzles, this kind of puzzle system works with the dungeon crawl aspect of the game. Mechanically, that's really the main standout here. I mean, it has all your other kind of dungeon crawl standouts there. You do get loot drops, which is nice. It's a random loot drop, so it's not by enemy type or anything like that. You'll just have you've got random loot in this bag, and then whenever enemy drops, they're just going to drop a random loot on the board, and then you can go pick it up. So that's okay. The loot you get is not spectacular. It just pops up your one of your stats or gives you health or something like that. So there's no items or anything like that you pick up as loot. Campaign wise, now this review is not, this is not a campaign review. I've not completed the campaign. I should have stated that at the beginning. This is a gameplay review. If when I do finish the campaign, I'll have a separate review that talks about the campaign, but I can talk about the campaign mechanics and how the campaign works. So the interesting thing about this one is it plays, if you've ever played Sword and Sorcery, this is I find this system, the campaign system here, similar to Sword and Sorcery, where there's a campaign where you progress through the scenarios, but you can also play the scenarios as one-offs if you want to. They recommend starting at the first scenario, but I mean, you could just pick a scenario and play it. So I like that for people who don't want to play through a full campaign. They do support you just playing a scenario, so that's cool. The scenario but you do get player sheets here to track scenario progress and player progress. So that's cool. And there's many ways you progress through the scenario. So one of the mechanics is, again, this is similar to Gloomhaven, although I think this is an improvement over the Gloomhaven goal system. So at the beginning of each scenario, you're going to randomly pick a goal card, but the goal cards are character specific. So each character has a set of gold cards that you're going to randomly draw from, and the gold card you get has two sides to it, and which correlate to two tracks on your player sheet. So you've got these two tracks, and to complete these goals, so like this one, he's got future proof, so I have to have full focus and full spirit at the end of the turn. So those are these tracks. So if I get these two tracks up to full by the end of the turn, then I can progress on this goal. And if you do that twice, you complete the goal. Same on this other side. I'll just have some other. So this other one was choose your initiative card at random from your hand. So you've got kind of this character has a Serenity track and a Madness track, and so it kind of goes with the character progression and kind of how you're playing your character. If you complete one or both of the goals, if you get to progress up. So if you complete a goal, you get to progress up 3 on that, whatever the related track to that. If you complete them both, you can move up 3 on one of the tracks and 1 on the other track. And then as you move up that track, you're just going to get bonuses. You're going to get new cards in your deck, little perks and things you can do. So I really like that goal system and how that feeds into this the perks and tracks. It's really cool. There's skills you can progress on. That comes from these tracks and winning scenarios and that kind of stuff. And then when you level up, you can use your experience points to kind of level up your health and these other tracks. So you're making those kind of decisions as the game goes. There's also a fame track. You just get a certain amount of fame at the end of every scenario for doing things, and you move up here and you just get some bonuses. That's just kind of like a simple little thing. So really like the character progression in this game. It works really well. Lots of neat little decisions to make as you tailor your character. And your character is based on this kind of deck of cards, so you'll be pruning cards from here, adding new cards, that kind of thing. So you're kind of tailoring this deck, which will determine how that character plays. All really good. The campaign does go through scenarios, and then periodically you're going to get this kind of town thing where you go to this town for a few days, and that alternates. When you go to the town, you'll draw an event card, and then you'll get to do one of these things. So each day, so there's 5 things on this map that you can do. This is kind of how you level up your character and get items and that kind of thing. And the items in this game aren't they're not super awesome. They're just these little chips. They have names and stuff, but they basically, the way the items work in this game is you put them on one of your Nexus spots. They add a little bonus to that spot that stays there permanently for the entire scenario. But at the end of the scenario, you have to pay a resource to refresh them, or you lose them. And then, of course, you can buy them back. They are pretty cheap to buy. They're actually cheaper to buy back than they are to refresh. So you might want to, but you don't get to go to the town after every scenario. So that's another thing that there's kind of set points in the campaign where you get to go back to town and do this kind of thing. So you kind of got to weigh that in there. So that's all I want to talk about mechanically for this game. Let's start by talking about what I don't like in this game. So there's not really much to not like in this game. So these are going to be kind of just little nitpicks. So the first nitpick that I'm going to have, and this is a very minor nitpick, is theme. So no, don't get me wrong. I love the theme in this game, but I'm not going to say it's a problem with the system, because I do like this Nexus grid system. But the thing that this Nexus grid system does is it is kind of abstract. So it does kind of pull you out of the theme of the game. So when I'm playing and I put down my card here, I mean, the cards have names. They don't even really have, it's not even like they're like called like moves or something like this one's called Isopod Aggression and this one's called Drew Distraction, but it's not. It might have been better if they had like more like verbs here, like, you know, go distract someone, or you know, lightning move or something like that. That might put you more into the theme of the game, to say, oh, I'm chaining this, you know, this hack and slash with this, you know, drop kick or something like that. They kind of miss their opportunity on here with how that goes. So instead of that kind of thematic integration, instead I'm like, oh, I've got a 2 attack chain here. So if I put it here, then I can chain that with this other chain attack that'll let me roll 5 dice, and then this card lets me move 2, and I get a little bonus here. So it's very abstract, kind of what this does to let you do your things on the scenario. So I think a bit of a missed opportunity there. Might have been solved by just, you know, better titles for the cards to kind of make you think more thematically about what you're doing. You know, instead of, you know, this one's called Bee Dance. I don't know. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but yeah. So that's a very minor nitpick, but yeah. So you know, if you're really into the theme, this might, even though the system is good, this might pull you out of the theme a bit. And this might just be for me. But yeah, like I said, when I'm playing, I'm not thinking of all these cool moves I'm doing. I'm like, oh, where do I put this card to match this thing and get these symbols lined up and blah, blah. So that's very abstract that way. And really, that's the major nitpick I have with this game. That's not a major nitpick. That's the only thing I can think of to nitpick with this game. Like I said, you know, besides that, yeah, it is a bit linear for the campaign so far. And like I said, I don't want to do a campaign review because I haven't finished the campaign, so that it might. So far, I'm like 5 scenarios in, and I've only had one choice about which scenarios to go. So I'm not sure that there is branching scenarios in here. It might be more of a linear scenario path, because the one time I had a choice, it was like side quests. So there's 2 side quests, and I got to choose between one. So, you know, if you want like an open world kind of adventure thing, this is more linear than an open world so far, anyways. At least what I've played. Yeah, that's about all I can think of in my kind of like negatives for this game. What do I like about this game? Number one, this next. I know I just complained that this is pulling me out of the theme, but this system is fun to play. Like this even though it you know, thematically it might not fit into the kind of dungeon crawliness. It is a fun system to play. I do like, you know, planning out, okay, so, you know, I've got these 4 cards. You know, I don't just want to think about what I'm doing this turn. I got to think, oh, how is this, you know, the way I lay these cards out, I got to, you know, I can think 3 turns in advance to say, okay, I'll put this card here because next turn, you know, I'm going to put this one here so I can get this chain attack. And then I'll put the next card over here, and then I can do this chain attack. And then knowing when to clear the lines, and, you know, kind of when you can build this grid up to get a bunch of moves going in tandem. Really cool system, really neat. I really enjoy how this works, and it does, like I said, this does set it apart from other dungeon crawls, because otherwise, without this grid system, the only other thing that really sets us apart from the, you know, the myriad other dungeon crawls out there is the theme, because this is a different theme. This the Tidal Blade. I really love this Tidal Blades world. this underwater nexus fighting leviathans and stuff like that. It's a cool theme, and it's different. It's not your typical fantasy dungeon crawl theme that that's so prevalent out there that I'm getting really bored of. No, this is a different world. I'm in a different thematic setting. So those two kind of things really set this apart. If you're looking at dungeon crawls and stuff and you want something different, the fact that the theme is a really neat theme and not done anywhere else, and this Nexus board system, which is quite different than anything else out there. So it's not your just typical roll dice and everything. You still do roll dice because the attack here determines when you're chaining attacks or just doing attacks. It is determining how many dice you roll, and then you're looking for damage symbols. So that's kind of per normal, but just this whole planning this thing out and everything is really cool. But yeah, that's the favorite thing about everything else. Just really works really well. The rest of the game is just taking kind of the best of what's out there and integrating into the game. Like I said, the AI enemy system is very similar to Gloomhaven. I think it's a bit more streamlined than Gloomhaven, so they've kind of improved it a little bit. But otherwise, that system is very Gloomhaven-ish. And there's nice little enemy varieties and stuff like that. I do organize this game also, similar to Gloomhaven, where I take all the cards and the standees and the initiative marker and put them all in a little baggie. And you'll want to do that, otherwise it'll be hard to get all that stuff together. If you do that, then it's easy to get this stuff out for the game. But if you keep the cards separate and the standees in a big pile or stuff, it's going to take you a while to set this up. So I recommend that you organize this, organize your enemies, everything to do with an enemy type. I would put it in a baggie, and that makes it much more easier to pull it out and set it up. Well, I guess the one negative I missed. The other thing is the storage system in the game. There is no, at least in the retail version. It might be in the deluxe version or the Kickstarter version, because I don't know what's in that one. But I'm almost at the point where I'm just going to throw the insert out. It's a typical retail kind of cardboard insert that is pretty useless. So as far as how to pack this game up and store it and organize it, that's kind of up to you. So that's another little negative on this one, but it is what it is. The main thing I think is organizing the enemy types. That will make it a lot easier. And of course, the characters you're playing in your campaign, you want to bag those up together so you can get those out easily. Otherwise, everything else is whatever, it fits in the box quite easily. So overall, what do I think about this game? I'm giving this game an 8.5. I think this one stands out in front of the dungeon crawls. There's a lot of dungeon crawls out there now. I mean, I love dungeon crawls, but you're kind of getting to the point where there's too many of them. But this one does stand out. It has a unique theme. It has a unique combat mechanism. Everything else is put together really well. I like the scenario construction. The scenarios are interesting and fun. And there's some good variety in the scenario writing for this one, and the writing is pretty cool. Even though there's not a ton of story in this one, there's just little blurbs, so it's not there's no storybook that you're going to for that kind of stuff. It's just the scenario will have like a page of writing to kind of set the scene, and then there'll be little things that happen during the scenario and little blurbs, that get you through. So there's not a ton of reading in this. This is not one of those campaign adventure games where you're doing a lot of reading and there's a whole storybook and blah blah blah. So this is more, like I said, more like a sword and sorcery one, where you've got little things in the scenario book, little blurbs in the scenario book, and it's all about the kind of like the scenario and how the scenario is constructed, and the scenarios are constructed really well in here too. So I think that's another strength of this game. At least the ones I've played have been really fun to play. And really, that's all I have to say about this game. So thanks for watching as usual, and we'll catch you next time.